Welcome back to The Deep Dive. Today we're looking at a really remarkable document you sent over. It's a 1977 address by Sun Myung Moon in Pasadena, California.
That's right. It was translated by Bo Hai Pak, and the title is The Ones Who Can Receive God's Love.
And for this deep dive, we're really going to try and pull out the architecture of what he's demanding, theologically and, well, philosophically.
It is a dense text, and our mission here is to unpack that core demand he makes on a follower. It's essentially a manual for a kind of radical self-discipline.
It focuses so much on suffering, which the speech calls indemnity.
Exactly. And how that suffering is presented as the only path to solving this fundamental conflict, he says, is inside every human being.
What's so striking, though, is where it begins. It's not with fire and brimstone. It actually starts in a very surprising place, almost like a travelogue.
It is surprising. He opens by praising California's atmosphere. He frames California as a wonderland, with its blue sky and this feeling of optimism.
And he says that this environment, this light, open atmosphere, it perfectly matches the vision of the young people there.
Right. It's a very unusual way to get into a serious theological speech. He's using nature as a kind of rhetorical setup.
A symbolic language, almost immediately. He contrasts a thunderstorm, this image of an angry God, with the sun.
Which is all about hope, light, and warmth. He says young people are naturally drawn to the sun and the blue sky, that it's like they're feeling the universe's heartbeat.
But this creates a tension right away. The world is beautiful, it's sweet, but you just know he's about to say that real depth requires something more, something bitter.
And to bridge that gap, he uses this one detail that's, it's one of the most memorable parts of the whole address. He talks about the human eye.
Ah, the blue eye analogy.
Yes. He says the blue of the eye mirrors the blue of the sky, which he calls the dwelling place of God. It's sort of an icebreaker, a way to connect with the audience.
But he doesn't just leave it at the surface beauty.
No, the depth comes from the contrast. He says if an eye were just solid blue, it would be boring, monotonous. The crucial part is that black dot in the center.
Because it provides the depth, the mystery.
The necessary contrast. And that's the lesson right there. Superficial beauty is fleeting. True beauty needs complexity. And with that, he's prepared the listener for what's coming.
And what's coming is a pivot, a huge pivot. He goes from this beautiful nature poetry to a really profound and honestly a pretty harsh critique of the culture around him.
He basically argues that American youth culture is missing that black dot. It's missing the depth. Everyone is just seeking sweetness and good things.
Only wanting to rise without ever experiencing struggle. And the consequence of that.
Insensitivity. He's very direct about this. He says young people take everything for granted. Food, shelter, even their parents. They become, and this is his phrase, numb to beauty, numb to sweetness.
Because they have no bitterness to compare it to.
Exactly. And this leads to his central diagnosis of the nation. He says America is floating.
Floating. What does he mean by that?
The critique is that the society lacks deep roots. Nothing is settled, nothing is unchanging, because everyone is just chasing the next easy thing. It's a powerful image. A tree can't grow tall without deep roots.
So if America's floating, what's the anchor? This is where the mission of his movement comes in, right?
This is it. He says the Unification Church has a mandate from God to provide that missing bitterness, to provide the depth. Their mission is to train youth through suffering and hard work.
It sounds like a spiritual boot camp.
It is. The goal isn't to break them, but to force their roots down deep, even into rocky soil, until they become invincible.
And he doesn't just demand this. He uses his own life as the prime example.
Oh, absolutely. His personal testimony is crucial. He talks about his own extreme suffering in Korea, in Japan, and now in America. But he reframes it all.
He says the opposition just made him stronger.
Stronger, more famous, more impactful. It deepened his roots. He says he's fresh with love and humor and fighting spirit because of the hardship, not in spite of it.
So the message to the follower is clear. The more the world pushes against you, the deeper your roots go. You have to be a born fighter.
It's a complete flip of worldly values. Persecution, hardship. These aren't things to avoid. They're prerequisites for spiritual greatness. And this sets up his central metaphor for what a follower should be.
The bone versus the flesh. It's a brutal analogy, but you don't forget it.
You don't. And it's absolutely central to the whole philosophy. The flesh is everything temporary, fleeting gratification, superficial culture. He calls it morning dew. It just vanishes.
Weak. It's what rots.
And the bone is the opposite. It's the tough, unbending framework. It provides structure. His argument is that America's flesh culture has caused the nation's bones, its morals, its ethics, to rot.
And he uses a pretty dramatic real-world example to land this point, the New York City blackout.
Yes, he points to the looting, the chaos, what he calls the jungle-like turmoil, as direct proof that society is on the brink. The external systems fail for a few hours, and the internal moral structure just collapses.
So the movement's role is, well, it's huge. They have to become the bone. They're literally putting the missing bones into Western culture.
Which means the level of commitment required is total. He says if you're half-hearted, don't even bother starting. You have to be ready to endure anything, kidnapping, deprogramming, and just bounce back stronger.
The opposition itself becomes the proof of their power.
It does, and he uses another great analogy for that. He compares his church to other religions using the image of Niagara Falls.
How does that work?
He says most churches are like big, smooth rivers like the Amazon or the Mississippi. They're huge, but they're generally peaceful.
Okay.
But the Unification Church, he says, is like Niagara Falls. It might be smaller geographically, but it faces unique challenges and this intense, concentrated persecution.
And that struggle is what creates the power.
Awesome power and gusto. That's the phrase.
Yeah.
The movement's value isn't in its popularity, it's in the pressure it withstands. That's what gives it this explosive spiritual value.
So that's the external mandate, to become the bone of society. But that brings us back to the individual. How does a person actually resolve that core human conflict inside them?
Right, he returns to that internal battle, the contradiction within us. The mind pulls you one way, toward God's will, and the body pulls you another, toward physical gratification.
And if you don't solve that, he says any talk of a kingdom of heaven is just a big joke.
It's a joke. So before he gives the solution, he makes a quick, logical argument for God's existence.
He does, yeah. He talks about the precision of the universe, the planets, the human cell. He says randomness can't create that kind of order. There has to be a universal intelligence.
And his example of the eye comes back here. It's very effective. He asks, how did the eye know it would need eyelids and eyebrows to protect it from dust and wind in the future?
The eye didn't know.
Someone did know, is his answer. Someone planned ahead, so he establishes God as the great designer.
And that perfect design contrasts so sharply with the out-of-order state of humanity. He explains this using the concept of the fall.
Right. He says the fall created this deep contradiction. Satan established his base in the physical body while God's base is the mind. So you have this constant civil war inside you.
So if the conflict is that fundamental, God versus Satan inside our own bodies, what's the cure? What's the one thing that can fix that division?
He says it's the perfect love of God, unique, pure, unchanging. But it's not a passive thing. Love needs an object to be activated. Otherwise, even God is lonely.
The follower has to empty themselves to let that love in.
Exactly. Let God's love dwell in the body, which then puts the mind back in charge as the master.
Okay, so that brings us to the actual method, the practical steps. How do you prove this love and train the body to obey?
By conquering the three most fundamental human urges. He calls them the ultimate test.
Hunger, sleep, and physical love.
Those are the three. They're the core demands of the body. If you can master them, you prove that your mind, guided by God, is truly in control.
Yeah, and this is where that concept of indemnity becomes so important. We've mentioned it, but let's just break it down for a second. What does he mean by it?
That's a crucial point. Indemnity in this framework is about paying a spiritual debt. The idea is that humanity fell, creating this imbalance. So indemnity is the process of reversing it by voluntarily taking on difficulty.
So every act of self-discipline is an act of paying back that debt.
It is. It's transforming ordinary life into acts of indemnity. So take eating. You're not just eating for yourself. You're eating as God's representative to get energy for his work.
And sleeping.
Same thing. You sleep for God and humanity so you can be a better fighter the next day. And the instruction is specific. You have to push past your physical limits, cross the line of exhaustion before you rest.
You're training the body to endure more than it thinks it can.
Absolutely. And the third urge, physical love in marriage, is also transformed. It's not for personal satisfaction. It has to be for the sake of humanity, for posterity. The spouse is seen as a representative of all men or women.
So even the most intimate parts of life are repurposed for this larger mission.
Everything is training, which leads directly to the hard work, like the fundraising teams he mentions, the MFT.
Right, the mobile fundraising teams. What was their spiritual purpose?
He's clear that it's not really about the money, the work itself, the exhaustion, the public rejection. He calls it priceless training. It was a key way to pay indemnity.
And this reframing extends to persecution itself. He calls being cursed or criticized a privilege, an honor, That's a powerful psychological tool.
It's a radical restructuring of reality. If you're persecuted, you're not suffering shame. You are paying the historical debt of all who suffered before you, which brings up his idea of a spiritual bank account.
Okay, break that down for us. How does getting cursed translate into a spiritual credit?
It's like a cosmic accounting system.
Yeah.
By taking on criticism, by letting the world reject you, you're filling up a spiritual bank account with credit that society owes but hasn't paid.
And once that account is full,
You can use that credit to pay indemnity for others, for your family, your race, your country, even the spirit world. It turns your personal suffering into a tool for universal liberation.
so the ultimate victory isn't about worldly success.
Not at all. The true victory is becoming a victor of love, like Jesus. He says a person who unites with God's perfect love becomes a magnet, irresistibly pulling others toward them.
And he ends by stressing just how unique this opportunity is for the people right there in that auditorium.
Yes. He tells them they have this priceless honor of meeting him physically and spiritually. He says that this moment could never be bought even with billions of dollars, because future generations will only know the teachings spiritually. This present moment is the time of maximum value.
An overwhelming call to action. So what's the final thought we should take away from all this? What's the question that we should be left with?
Well, he makes this truly provocative claim at the end. He says, look, if you follow this path, conquer hunger, sleep, and the self, even if his entire teaching turned out to be a lie, you would never lose.
Why not?
Because that level of self-discipline, that unselfish way of life, will automatically make you a leader. You'll become someone whose character society is forced to admire.
That's fascinating. So the method itself guarantees a kind of worldly success, regardless of the ultimate spiritual truth.
Exactly. So the question he leaves you with is this. If the suffering and the effort alone will make you an admirable person in this life, how much more valuable does all that struggle become when you realize the spiritual bank account you filled, the indemnity you paid for all of humanity after all the hard work is done? That's the question of ultimate value to carry forward.